Tonight, the fiery confirmation hearing. President-elect Donald Trump's pick for Defense Secretary grilled on Capitol Hill. Pete Hegseth, now the first Trump cabinet pick on the hot seat before the Senate. The Army National Guard veteran and former Fox News host clashing with Democrats, claiming he's the victim of a smear campaign amid allegations of sexual assault and excessive drinking, and what he now says about women in the military after stating in the past they shouldn't serve in combat. Also tonight, the new fire breaking out. The Los Angeles area now under a particularly dangerous red flag warning for strong winds. Crews still battling the biggest infernos and what's being learned about what sparked them. The final special counsel report released on Donald Trump's attempts to overturn the 2020 election. Our nightly news exclusive, Inside Iran, my one-on-one conversation with the Iranian president. We ask him directly, did Iran plan to assassinate President-elect Trump, and will it try in the future? Are you willing to promise that there will be no attempt on the life of Donald Trump? How he answered that question and his reaction to the possible ceasefire between Israel and Iran-backed Hamas. And Princess Kate, the good news she's announcing about her battle with cancer.
This is NBC Nightly News with Lester Holt.
Good evening and welcome. The political will behind President-elect Trump's second cabinet is getting its first test. To listen in on the Senate confirmation hearing of decorated combat veteran and former Fox News host Pete Hegseth, you would be left thinking he is either unfit to lead the Pentagon or an excellent choice as a change agent for a sprawling military bureaucracy. Democrats focusing on Hegseth's past comments about women in combat, as well as allegations of sexual misconduct and excessive drinking. Hegseth slamming those allegations as anonymous false claims and part of a smear campaign. Lawmakers sharply divided along party lines. In this, the first and most contentious confirmation hearing just 6 days before Trump's inauguration. It's where we begin tonight with NBC's Garrett Haake.
Tonight, President-elect Trump's embattled pick to lead the Pentagon, former Fox News host and combat veteran Pete Hegseth, making an impassioned pitch for the job.
That it's time to give someone with dust on his boots the helm. My only special interest is the warfighter.
Arguing he's the target of false attacks.
There was a coordinated smear campaign orchestrated in the media against us.
But Hegseth facing a grilling from Senate Democrats, including over a 2017 sexual assault allegation. Police investigated, but no charges were filed. The local prosecutor saying, quote, no charges were supported by proof beyond a reasonable doubt.
You've admitted that it was consensual, and you were still married, and you just had a child by another woman. Again, how do you explain your judgment? Completely false charges against me. You fully investigated, and I was completely clear. You have admitted that you had sex while you were married to wife 2 after you just had fathered a child by wife 3. You've admitted that. Now, if it had been a sexual assault, that would be disqualifying to be Secretary of Defense, wouldn't it? It was a false claim then and a false claim now.
Republicans rallying to his defense.
We need somebody who's going to go in there and fight for innovation, fight for change. I think you're that person, and I appreciate your willingness to sit here and listen to some of these undignified attacks. It's ridiculous.
Democrats also going after Hegseth's past opposition to women in combat roles.
You will have to change how you see women to do this job well, and I don't know if you are capable of that.
But in a positive sign for Hegseth, Iowa's Joni Ernst, a combat veteran previously seen as a Hegseth skeptic, appearing more supportive today.
Will you support women continuing to have the opportunity to serve in combat roles?
My answer is yes, exactly the way that you caveated it. Yes, women will have access to ground combat roles, given the standards remain high.
Garrett joining us now. Garrett, this was seen largely as a make-or-break moment for Hegseth, and you have some new reporting on the impact of all this.
That's right, Lester. Trump transition officials are extremely pleased with Hegseth's performance today. Now, remember, if all Democrats oppose him, he can only afford to lose 3 Republican votes and still be confirmed. Tonight, one Republican senator tells me he thinks Hegseth is on track to that confirmation, possibly as early as next week. Lester?
All right, Garrett Haake, thank you. Let's get to the deadly wildfire emergency in Southern California. 1 week after it all began, 13 million people remain under red flag warnings tonight as high winds threaten the region again. Liz Kreutz has late details for us.
Tonight, fire-ravaged Los Angeles yet again on edge as Southern California braces for another extreme wind event. City officials urging residents to be prepared to evacuate as the National Weather Service issues the same rare highest-level threat advisory that fueled the devastating Palisade and Eaton fires.
We are taking an aggressive lean-forward posture, and the LAFD has staffed all available resources, strategically placing fire patrols and engines in the unimpacted high fire risk areas in the city.
In the past week, 60 miles across LA County has been scorched. NBC's Ellison Barber embedded with CAL FIRE to see the conditions from the air.
Air efforts are a critical part of this firefight, and you see it here. Teams are attacking these fires and hotspots like this one from the air every chance they get.
Tonight, officials say 37 people remain unaccounted for and 24 people confirmed dead. And now growing scrutiny about how the fires started. This video, taken by Altadena resident Pedro Rojas, shows a large blaze directly beneath electrical towers in the early minutes of the Eaton fire. This coming as at least 2 new lawsuits have been filed targeting power company SoCal Edison, alleging negligence for in part failing to de-energize that transmission line, which the suit says sparked the deadly fire.
What's the proof that you're pointing to that this started at the transmission line?
In our complaint, we allege videos, photographs, eyewitness testimony, and of course, we know that they have tools like PSPS, Public Safety Power Shutoff, that they could have used and chose not to.
Evangelina Iglesias is part of the suit, a longtime FedEx worker who lost her Altadena home in the Eaton fire.
I wish they would have shut everybody's power off earlier in the day if they knew that there was going to be 60 to 80-mile gusts of wind.
In a statement, the utility saying it understands lawsuits have been filed and will review them, and points to the fact that the cause of the fire continues to be under investigation. In the Palisades fire, officials saying they're not ruling out arson as a cause, as the ATF now leads the investigation. Tonight, with new hurricane-force winds on its back, Southern California hoping the ferocious flames stay away.
And Liz, officials are now warning residents about a health emergency there as well. Tell us about it.
Yeah, Lester, that's right. Air quality is a huge concern right now. Millions of people are what's under a wind-blown dust and ash advisory, with officials concerned that these high winds are going to allow this dust and debris to travel. Residents are being urged to stay inside, keep your windows rolled up, and wear a mask if you're going to be outside for an extended period of time. Lester.
Okay, Liz Kreutz, thank you. Let's get right to Al Roker. Those Santa Ana winds are still a threat.
They are, Lester, at least for another 24 hours, but then we'll get some good news. Right now, though, as we mentioned, 13 million people under these red flag warnings. The particularly dangerous situation, Pyramid Lake, also Camarillo, Westlake Village, on just to the north of Pasadena. The winds right now higher up in the mountains with up to 50 to 60 mile per hour wind gusts. Overnight tonight, those gusts will increase again with low humidity. Tomorrow, they do start to diminish. That's the good news. The bad news is we've got another 24 hours with these improving conditions. But the really bad news, Lester, no matter with those winds dying down, it is still bone dry with only 10% of the rain they needed to get since October. Okay, Al Roker, thanks very much. Just developing, hundreds of police entering the residence of South Korea's President Yoon, pushing through a crowd of supporters in a second attempt to arrest him. Yoon has been holed up in the residence for weeks after being impeached for his attempt to impose martial law. The Presidential Security Service has been protecting him. Also tonight, special counsel Jack Smith's report on the election interference case against President-elect Trump finally made public 6 days before the inauguration. Laura Jarrett has details.
Special counsel Jack Smith pulling back the curtain on the historic investigation that once loomed over the president-elect, but never got to a jury. In Smith's final report, he writes prosecutors had amassed enough evidence to obtain and sustain a conviction at trial, accusing Donald Trump of a series of criminal efforts to stay in office after he lost the 2020 election.
It was fueled by lies. Lies by the defendant, targeted at obstructing a bedrock function of the U.S. government.
The case never got very far. Mr. Trump denied any wrongdoing and pled not guilty, as his attorneys managed to successfully delay at every stage. The Justice Department finally agreeing to toss out the indictment after he was reelected, citing its long-standing policy against prosecuting the president. Smith largely stayed out of public view, while Mr. Trump routinely directed his ire at the veteran prosecutor, posting today he's a lame-brained prosecutor who was unable to get his case tried before the election.
What they've done to me in terms of weaponization, indictments, impeachments, and everything else, and in the end, it probably helped me.
Smith now using his final report to lay the attack at the Capitol at Mr. Trump's feet, just as the president-elect is days away from being sworn in there. He's said he plans to pardon some rioters his first day in office. Laura Jarrett, NBC News.
In 60 seconds, my exclusive interview with the president of Iran, what he says about the prospect of a Gaza ceasefire and hostage release, and the criminal charges over the alleged Iranian plot to assassinate Donald Trump. We are learning more about the potential ceasefire deal between Israel and Iran-backed Hamas. A senior Israeli official saying Hamas would release 33 hostages out of the first phase, lasting 42 days. The potential deal, an important topic of our exclusive interview inside Iran with that country's president yesterday. We also talked about tensions with the U.S. just days before President-elect Trump takes office. And a note, we spoke via government interpreter, and NBC News reviewed the translation independently. We traveled to Iran at a critical moment for its president, Masoud Pezeshkian. What made you decide to run for president?
Because of difficulty in the country and also in other countries around us, I decided to solve this problem.
But to the incoming American president, many problems in the Middle East center around Iran. In his first term, President-elect Trump imposed significant economic sanctions to stop Iran from acquiring a nuclear weapon and pulled out of the Iranian nuclear deal, while the new Iranian leader is presenting himself as a reformer. I want to first talk about Donald Trump. He has promised increased sanctions, maximum pressure on Iran. Do you have a message for him?
What is clear thus far, we are living in Iran. Ever since the very beginning, the United States has tried to topple Iran. I do hope that Trump will conduce to peace in the region and the world, not conversely contribute to bloodshed or war.
Are you willing now to have direct, open talks with Washington, with President Trump?
The problem we have is not in dialogue, it's in the commitments that arise from talk and dialogue that we'll have to commit to. We held talks with 5+1, lengthy talks, and we upheld all the commitments that we had to commit to. But unfortunately, it was the other party that did not live up to its promises and obligations.
Israel and the United States are beginning to talk about whether a strike, a military strike against Iran might be necessary to stop its nuclear program. If that were to happen, what would Iran's reaction be?
You see, naturally enough, we will react to any action. We do not fear war, but we do not seek it.
Do you think an attack against Iran is likely given the current circumstances?
I strongly hope that this will not transpire because it will be to the detriment of all the actors, not only and merely us.
President-elect Trump has said, when asked about the likelihood of war, he says anything can happen. It's a volatile situation. President Macron of France said, we're nearing a point of no return. When you hear those kind of characterizations, where do you think that leaves this tension right now?
There are tensions, and they serve no party's interests. Whatever we have done thus far has been peaceful. We do not seek to create nuclear weaponry or armament. However, they accuse us of seeking the manufacturing of a bomb. This is a scheme they're trying to follow in order to fabricate some sort of a pretext. This is not true.
And all of it happening as U.S. and Western officials believe Iran has been significantly weakened. This is not the same Iran as when Donald Trump was last president. Its influence in this region has been greatly diminished by losses among its allies and proxies, Hamas, Hezbollah, and the fall of the Syrian government. Has that left Iran in a weaker position?
I
do not see any link. Some of the friends might see a link, but comparing to last year, inside the country, we're more coherent, we're more robust, we have better participation, we have a more solid security in the country.
And then there's the impact of what U.S. prosecutors say was a plot by Iran to kill President-elect Trump before his election win. One potential threat to diplomacy could be seen as what the U.S. believes was Iran's plan to assassinate Donald Trump. Was there such a plan? He blamed Israel and other countries.
This is yet another scheme that the foreigners are following in order to feed into Iranophobia.
You're saying there was never an Iranian plot to kill Donald Trump?
Never, by no means.
I guess the next question is, are you willing to promise that there will be no attempt on the life of Donald Trump?
Ever since the beginning, we never intended to do that.
And we asked about a potential ceasefire between Israel and Iranian-backed Hamas. Do you think there's a role for Iran in bringing about this peace and the release of hostages?
We do whatever we can in order for peace to prevail in the region. We will not spare no effort in order for the prisoners to be released.
Part of my interview in Tehran with the president of Iran. Up next, as we continue here tonight with a potential ban on TikTok, the new Chinese apps they're turning to instead. With the Supreme Court expected to rule any day on a law that could ban TikTok in the U.S., some of the app's rivals are seeing a sudden surge. Let's get more from Savannah Sellers.
We're just going to TikTok's other apps.
Tonight, amid fear a TikTok ban could take effect later this week, some Americans flocking to Chinese apps like RedNote.
I'm a TikTok refugee.
And Lemonade.
Hello, Lemonade. This is my first video.
Both apps have similarities to TikTok, and Lemonade shares a parent company, ByteDance. The platform's topping Apple's downloads.
We are doing this to spite our own government.
Some say it's a form of protest.
By going to an app like RedNote, they're saying, no, I am in control of where I give my data.
Some users even protesting American-owned Meta.
You will not catch me on Instagram Reels.
The law that could ban TikTok largely focuses on U.S. government concerns that China could manipulate content Americans see or steal user data. TikTok denies this. TikTok's parent company, ByteDance, is explicitly named in the law. Users, for now, assuming the government isn't prepared to also block other apps like RedNote, but they could eventually be impacted because of their Chinese ownership. ByteDance could sell TikTok to an American owner. Today, questions swirling if Elon Musk is in the mix to buy it after Bloomberg reported Chinese officials have discussed that, according to people familiar with the matter. TikTok tells NBC News that's pure fiction. Savannah Sellers, NBC News.
And coming up as we continue tonight, after the fire, the spirit of perseverance in an African-American community deeply rooted for generations. The good news is next. A major update from Princess Kate on her health battle. Months after finishing chemotherapy, the princess announcing she is in remission from cancer. Kate writing on Instagram about the relief she feels, saying she remains focused on recovery. And finally, amid all the destruction in California, one community is in ashes is fighting to preserve the past. Gotti Schwartz now with the good news tonight.
As the history of Altadena is forever changed by fire, its character is being sketched by an artist left without a home. For more than a half a century, Altadena has been a beacon of light on a hill, one of the first places in the 60s to welcome black and brown families. Today, black ownership is 80% here. It's the kind of place you find people like Walt Butler, who spent his blessed life giving away money to lose everything he had at the age of 83.
The people in Altadena are just like one giant family.
The community coming together, raising over $800,000, and his first thought, a food truck so he can give right back.
You're getting a food truck. It's going to be funky.
At a bookstore called Octavia's Bookshelf.
In the back are where you're going to find masks.
Today, there's no room for books, only donations.
We've just become this hub where people can come and get what they need.
The store is named for Altadena's famed science fiction writer Octavia Butler. Decades ago, she wrote Parable of the Sower about a girl in the year 2025 facing an apocalyptic fire fueled by climate change. One passage now going viral. As wind, as water, as fire, as life, God is both creative and destructive, demanding and yielding, sculptor and clay. God is infinite potential. God is change.
You guys are the seeds of change.
We hope so. Yeah, we hope so.
Gotti Schwartz, NBC News, Altadena.
And that is Nightly News for this Tuesday. Thank you for watching. I'm Lester Holt. Please take care of yourself and each other. Good night. Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.